Hey everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault, and once again I'm coming to you with the Texas Gun Vault Poll Question of the Week, a weekly vlog that I put out where I ask you, as my viewers and subscribers, about something that deals with guns, gun politics, current events, the news, or something fun like EDC that I want to get your thoughts and opinions on. And this week's question deals with the 1934 National Firearms Act, something that I think we all know about. And if you don't own any NFA items, you are aware of them. Of course, this is the law that regulates things like machine guns, suppressors, short-barreled rifles, short-barreled shotguns, destructive devices, and any other weapons, levying in most cases a $200 tax for ownership. And of course, this law was initially passed in 1934 in response to much of the organized crime that was happening in the country because of the Prohibition era. And because of this law, we have all of these taxes and regulations and now humongous wait times to get transfers on items that pretty much are no different than any other firearm that we can buy at a store. But I want to ask you guys, because now we live in a post-Bruin and post-Heller world. And of course, we always see all of the clickbait titles, no more NFA, breaking news, 6-3 Supreme Court decision strikes down suppressor bans, and all this kind of stuff. But yet, here we are in 2023, and we still have suppressor bans in the NFA, and it doesn't seem like it's going anywhere anytime soon. I know a lot of people hope, and there's a lot of great rationale and reasons to have hope and go, well, this is the case that's going to strike it down. Well, it's almost been 100 years and they haven't struck it down. So let's sit back and let's be realistic about this. Was the NFA ever going to go away? I know you hope so, but what does your heart really tell you? And that's what this question is about. So with all that said, let's dive right into this week's poll question. A few weeks ago, I asked in a poll if they ever thought the ATF's pistol brace rule would ever be overturned, whether that be through the courts or legislation. Many people were cautiously optimistic about the eventual outcome. So I thought I would ask the same question, but this time about something more broad, overreaching, and with a long history. This time I want to ask you about the 1934 National Firearms Act, or the NFA. What is your honest thoughts on the chances the NFA will be overturned in the courts or repealed with legislation? Do not answer what you want to happen, but rather what you think will happen. Remember, hope is not a plan. And I always have to put that little caveat in there, that hope is not a plan, because inevitably people always say, Jason, you're an idiot. You're not following the news. Look at what happens in the 5th Circuit or the 6th Circuit. We have all these lawsuits. It's going to be overturned. The Supreme Court in Heller and Bruin said this and that. I get it. But when's it going to happen? You know, as the saying goes, and I guess I'll make it G-rated for this video, at some point you have to poop or get off the toilet. Well, the federal government and the courts have been on the toilet now for almost 100 years when it comes to this law. When are they going to do something about it? When are they going to finally rule on it? Will they ever? I know what you guys hope, and you guys have a lot of good reasons to think this law is unconstitutional, and I agree with you. To me, a plain reading of the Second Amendment, a plain reading of the Heller decision, a plain reading of the Bruin decision easily says this law is unconstitutional. But convincing a judge to write an opinion, to throw it out and to overturn the law is nearly impossible for many reasons. Some are political, and some of these judges just want to uphold precedent and they want to get appointed to higher and higher judgeships. And if you go against the government and expand freedom to the citizens, well, the next president is not going to nominate you for a higher court. That's, I think, the uphill battle that we face. But what are the real chances? Of course, there's always a chance. It's like those memes you see on the internet. Your chances of getting killed by a cat are never zero. And it's true. The chances of never having this overturned are never zero. There's always that small chance. But really, what is it? So, let's see what you guys voted on this week and what you guys think would actually happen. With 151 votes this week, we have it will be repealed. After the Bruin decision, it will not stand. 13%. Partially repealed. Silencers, SBRs, and SBSs will be taken off, 19%. It is here to stay. Courts won't touch it, and Congress avoids it, 53%. It will get worse. More things will be added to the NFA, 15%. And something else, explain in the comments, 1%. And this week, I definitely agree with the sentiment of this poll and a vast majority of you. 53% say it's going nowhere. Yeah, as much as we want to see it go somewhere, we know it's unconstitutional, we know it's not going to be. It's just infeasible. It's practically and politically infeasible. It's not going to happen. Because now, what politician is going to run on a platform saying, we need to legalize machine guns? I know a lot of people would be really excited about that. But then the vast majority of Americans that don't care about guns, and machine gun is a scary term, and they're going to hear things like weapons of war, they'll never get elected. It's never going to happen, in my personal opinion. Even trying to chip away at it will never happen. It's just too much of a moneymaker for the government when it comes to taxes, and too many people are employed enforcing those laws for it to go away. It's just impractical and politically infeasible. But let's go through each one of these and we'll talk about it. First, we have it will be repealed. After the Bruen decision, it will not stand. I personally think that the only way the NFA can ever be taken down will be by the Supreme Court. The lower courts never will. There will always be judges who do special wordsmithing to avoid having to deal with the Bruen and the Heller case. They can say, yes, they said dangerous and unusual can be banned. Well, a machine gun is dangerous, but it's not unusual. But does and or, I'll ban it anyway because I don't want to be the judge. And then it just gets appealed and appealed and appealed, and eventually the Supreme Court, who could overturn it, will go, now's just not the time. This isn't the perfect case. So we'll wait another 15, 20 years. And by that time, of course, we have completely different justices on the court, and they're not going to take it up. There's always a chance they will. And if at any time in the past 100 years that was the possibility, well, now would be the time with the justices that serve there. But really, would they? I'm kind of scared when it comes to this latest case that they decided to take up. I'm not really sure if I trust Justice Roberts or Justice Barrett. I don't think they're as pro-2A as many people want to believe they are. Then we have partially repealed. Silencers, SBRs, and SBSs will be taken off. Now, if anything in the pro-repealing the NFA side comes to fruition, this is the way it's going to be. Even the ATF says silencers are not a problem. In fact, they're not even firearms according to the ATF, even though they say it is on a form. They know they're just accessories. In fact, during the Trump administration, they had the ATF white paper that said, well, we really do need to deregulate these. They're not an issue, and there's no need for us to be doing all this paperwork on silencers. They're not that dangerous. They're just accessories, no different than, let's say, a flash hider, and they don't work the way that the movies make them out to be. I also hope that when it comes to this ATF pistol brace ban, when this gets adjudicated in court and they show that these guns are not used more in crime than full-length rifles, well, that's going to give a lot of power to the people that want to take things like SBRs off the NFA. For example, here I have a Noveske Infidel. Now, this does have a pin and welded muzzle device, so this is actually a 16-inch barrel, but the actual barreled portion of this is only 13.9 inches. But because this muzzle device will not come off the gun, it's actually 16 inches. It's really weird, but if it could unscrew, this gun would be very illegal to have if you didn't pay the tax and have the proper paperwork. But just because this muzzle device either does or doesn't screw off, does it make the gun any more or less dangerous? Is it really worth a $250,000 fine and 10 years in jail? Of course not. That punishment does not fit the crime, if there's even a crime at all. And that's how silly this stuff is. And maybe winning the culture war and exposing people to the Second Amendment and showing them that these AR pistols are not dangerous, we might be able to chip away at it. But if all the stars aligned, I think this is the only thing that would be feasible. We'll never see a complete repeal of the NFA. Then we have it is here to stay. Courts won't touch it, and Congress avoids it, 53%. And this is exactly the way that I would vote. And by the way, I never vote in these polls. I never comment because I never want to skew the results. But I completely agree. We don't have a Republican Party or a Libertarian Party that is willing to bring this up. And the reason is you have about a third of the Republican caucus that really does like gun control. They like the status quo. You have the Mitt Romneys and the Susan Collinses that would be like, we can't repeal gun control laws that save lives. And you're like, well, how do these laws save lives? I don't know. I just can't do it. Or they're mad at the MAGA Republicans or the very conservative Republicans because they want to be moderate and they have to get along with the Democrats. And so they can never get enough votes, so nothing ever comes to the floor. They don't want to touch it. And even if they did, most likely the president, even a Republican president, would probably veto it. We all know that's the case. Then we have, it will get worse, more things will be added to the NFA. And the reason I said this and gave this as an option is we're always hearing about the ATF trying to add semi-automatic rifles to the list because after all, they might be readily converted based off of some wordplay and definition. Expect to try to see people put Glock pistols on there because, yeah, there are these illegal Glock switches from China that I guess people have gotten and gangs have gotten, or I guess you could make with parts you get from the hardware store. And with not too much work, turn your Glock full auto. Therefore, it's readily convertible, and therefore it needs to be on the NFA as a machine gun. Well, there you go. So that's the only way I could see that they would expand the NFA. And I think if things continue to go down this route and we allow politicians to play these word games and the regulatory agencies to play these word games and try to be clever, this is something that is a very big possibility in the future. And then we have something else explained in the comments that just got 1%. So for the most part, people thought it was either going to be repealed or it wasn't. And so that's what I think about each one of these. But let's see what you guys had to say with this week's top-rated comments. And our top-rated comment of the week comes from Cookie Monster 1969, who says, I think if the brace allows the user to shoulder a pistol, it is likely to be considered a SBR. But the braces that strap to the arm aid in stabilizing with one hand will be allowed. Well, that was the top-rated comment. It didn't really deal with the NFA as much as the older pistol stabilizing brace rule, but I definitely think that's a possibility. Then we have Brian Edgett, 2134, who said, I feel that we can get some things off the NFA, but I don't know if all of it can be removed as law. So he probably voted for the partial repeal, and it is a possibility. I would say the most likely is nothing is ever going to happen. The second most likely is we get silencers and SBRs especially. Maybe not SBSs because the sawed-off shotgun moniker, but maybe SBRs. It is a possibility. Then we have Steve Kaufman, 9244, who said, the things on the NFA list have been demonized for far too long to ever see it go away. And he's absolutely right. Perception is reality. And that's how the anti-gunners do it with assault weapon bans. They try to conflate semi-automatic rifles with full automatic machine guns, and therefore people that don't know look at an AR-15, assume it's a machine gun, and say it's okay to ban. That's how we lose the culture war and how we lose the wordplay in these games. Then we have Sabertooth Defense Systems, who said, it's not that the NFA can't be taken down, because it absolutely could. It's that it won't be overturned. Politicians on both sides in Congress and in the courts will do everything in their power to prevent this from being overturned. I'm of the mindset that the more will be added to the NFA. The gun grabbers will get sick of fighting so hard to ban everything and will therefore put as much as they can behind a $200 tax and year-long processing period. Pay to play. Yep, and that's exactly how many states like California try to do it. You gotta pay a humongous tax per bullet, per the gun, to get your concealed carry permit. They try to make it where it's a privilege for only the ultra wealthy and not a right. And then finally we have TXJ232, who said, unfortunately it's more like that semi-automatic rifles will be added to the NFA than the items will be removed. Not what I want to happen, but I don't see any possibility of Congress or the courts repealing the NFA or even removing suppressors or SBRs. Yep, and I completely agree. And what's sad is the ATF will add these semi-automatic weapons to the NFA, not through Congress, but just through rules and regulation, and then Congress will write a sternly worded letter and not actually do anything because the Republicans are weak-kneed and feckless and not courageous enough to actually stand up for our rights. But they'll have an inquiry and a strongly worded letter to send to the ATF director, and then it just goes away and life goes on like normal and everything is banned. And that's what I honestly think will happen, and why I'm always pessimistic about the future of our Second Amendment rights. So it sounds like a lot of you guys are grounded in reality and understand that the world is what it is. It's not what we want it to be, but we have to work within the framework of what reality is and do our best to try to change things. Will we ever? I don't know. I hope we do, but probably not in my lifetime, or maybe even yours. So that is the Texas Gun Vault poll question of the week, asking you about the National Firearms Act and if it will be ever repealed. And if you would like to participate in next week's poll, please go to the community tab of my YouTube channel. I post a link there and in the comment of this video. Go over there, see what the poll is about, vote, comment, and like other people's comments so we can get the top-rated comments of the week. So let me know in the comment section of this video if you ever think the NFA will be repealed. I would love to know, and let's have a great discussion. So, as always, thanks for watching.